Algebra 1, Section 4.3, solving inequalities using multiplication and division. Let me bring up the balance scale example again. What if you had this situation and 8 is heavier than 4, obviously, so this is what we've got, an inequality, the fulcrum being the middle of this left side and right side, whereas in the past equation, the fulcrum was the equal sign, now it's the inequality sign. And what if we doubled the weight? Rather than adding to it or subtracting to it like we did in the last video, what if we doubled it? Well, if I doubled it, I'd have 16 and 8. I'd still have this situation, the left side being heavier than the right side. What if I multiplied it by 10? What if I multiplied it by 1,000,000? Same. What if I divided it by 3? Don't pick 3, that's a bad number. What if I divided by 2? Because 8 and 4, you'd still have 4 and 2. You'd still have this situation. If you multiply or divide, and notice that I used all positive numbers there, then you're going to maintain this situation. So when you go to attack a problem like this, ask yourself what's happening to the variable. It's being divided by 2, so we're going to multiply both sides by 2. X is by itself on the left, less than remains less than, and negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Okay. Here, you would divide by 3, or you might say multiply by 1/3. I like that kind of language too. 12 divided by 3 is 4, or 12, 1/3 of 12 is 4, and you just keep the greater than symbol, greater than or equal to. Okay. Now, but what if we multiply by a negative number, right? What if I multiply both of these numbers by negative 2? Now this becomes negative 16, and this becomes negative 8. Now this number, it's hard to think about them like in terms of weight anymore, but basically the sense of the inequality has changed. Now negative 8 is greater than negative 16. You know, on a number line, you know, here's 0, here's negative 16, negative 8 is here. It's between negative 16 and 0. It's on the right of it. It's actually greater. So the sense of the inequality has switched. And here's the thing. No matter what you do, no matter what number you pick, if it's negative, and no matter which operation you choose, division or multiplication, the sense of the inequality will switch. Here's another reason why. Think of this. 5 is greater than 3. Isn't that true? 5 is greater than 3. But if I multiply or divide by a negative number, and you go ahead and pick any number you want if it's negative. If you multiply by a negative number, I'll pick negative 12. If I multiply by negative 12, what happens? This becomes negative 60, this becomes negative 36, and now you have the symbol that is opposite, right? So that is then what is kind of the exception that I talked about in the last video. There's an exception. So you can solve an inequality just exactly like you solve an equation. Whatever you do to the left side, you have to do to the right, and then you just carry the inequality symbol down, except if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, multiplication or division, and it's negative, you have to flip the sign. Less than becomes greater than becomes less than. Less than or equal to becomes greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to becomes less than or equal to. If you do this one, if this happens to happen. So knowing that ahead of time, you kind of, again, I use the same language over and over because I want you to, because repetition is important for you. Ask yourself what's happening to the variable here, and it's being multiplied by negative 1/2. You want to, some people would say divide by negative 1/2. When you hear that, when you say divide by negative, oh, I need to flip the sign. Something should ding in your head. I often say ding, multiply or divide by negative 1/2, ding, because you said divide by a negative, and it's an inequality. Okay. Now, even better than saying divide by negative 1/2 would be to say multiply by negative 2. The reciprocal of negative 1/2 is negative 2. That will also get x by itself. Multiply here by negative 2. Either way will get you to the correct answer. We like to use the terms in terms of reciprocals, inverses here. So this is x, this is negative 8, and greater than becomes less than. What about here? Here, again, you could say multiply by the reciprocal of negative 3, which is multiply by negative 1/3. A lot more people are going to say just divide by -3 here. So let's do that. This is x. This is a negative divided by negative, which is positive. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And less than or equal to becomes greater than or equal to. Okay. Now let's go ahead and graph one and check one just to kind of complete this. And then I have one more quick example to show you. So let's graph this one. X is less than -8. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is -5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's -10, 11, 12, 13. That's good enough. Open circle at -8 and shading to the left. Okay. Let's go ahead and check this one just like I showed you in the last video. Let's prove that this is actually true. X is greater than 4. Let's check and see if -3 times 4 is equal to -12. We're wondering if that's true. We also want to check some number that's greater than 4. I just usually pick the next one up, 5, but you could pick 10 or 5 million if you want to. Just some number that's greater than 4 and check it. -3 times, I'm going to pick 5, wondering if it's less than or equal to -12. Well, here you have -3 times 4, that's -12. So yes, they are equal, it checks. Here you have -15, is that less than? And again, I made the same small mistake as I did in the last video. We should just really just say less than. We already checked equal, now we're checking less than. Is -15 less than -12? Yes, it is, it checks. We can be confident in our answer. Okay, one more. Just a little bit of application. Your family budgets $160 to spend on fuel for a trip. How many times can they fill the car's gas tank if it costs $25 each time? So I don't know if this is a family conversation that they have. Okay, guys, we got $160 to spend on gas. Where can we go? Cincinnati. It's as far as we can get. Maybe Pittsburgh. Anyway, you're going to write your own inequality here and then solve the inequality that you wrote. Basically, it's $25 for each fill up. So I'll call that F for fill up the tank. Okay, $25 for each fill up. And this cannot exceed $160, right? So that's less than or equal to. 25 times the number of fill ups cannot exceed 160. It could equal it, that would be okay, but it can't exceed it because you guys, we only have $160. So what would you do? You would divide both sides by 25. That's not a negative, so I'm keeping the inequality sign. And then on my calculator, if I need to, I'll do 160 over 25. Now that's not going to divide out evenly, so we're going to have something left over. It's 6.4. F is less than or equal to 6.4. So if we're talking just fill-ups, like if we're stopping for gas, we're filling the tank all the way up, we're talking 6. But actually it's 6.4, like you could do that 6 times, then you'd have a little bit of money left over to, I don't know, maybe get you the last little bit. Anyway, that's the solution. 6.4 fill-ups. Thanks for tuning in.